All right, Algebra 2, 9.2, Day 2. Let's do a little review real quick. So you're learning about arithmetic sequences, which is going to be adding or subtracting the same number every single time. So like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that's an arithmetic sequence because you're adding 1 every single time. There's two types. There's something called a recursive sequence and an explicit sequence. A recursive is useful when you're trying to find the next term. And the explicit is useful when you want to find any term. So the recursive is good just in case like you just want to find like the next one, versus if you want to find the 150th, the explicit will work out well. The recursive formula is just going to be, it's whatever term you're on. So if you want to find a sub n, you find the term before it, so a sub n minus 1, plus we call it the common difference. So you take the term before it and you add to it or subtract from it the common difference, the numbers between each term. The explicit formula, the way I like to think about it is it's a sub n equals the first term plus the rest of the term. So this is the first, and this over here is the rest. So you do that by finding the common difference, which we call d, and you multiply that by n minus 1. Because here you have, let's say I wanted to find a sub 15. Well, if we find a sub 15, we take a sub 1. How many other terms do we have besides this term right here? So this is the first term, and then we have 14 more terms in order to get to the 15th term. So it would be plus d times n sub 14. Right? So if you think about it that way, it's the first term plus the rest of the terms. That's the explicit formula. And this one is going to be the first term or whatever term came before plus the difference gives you the next term, right? And that's basically the difference between the two. All right, so number 1, let's just go through the notes real quick. Easy notes today. The number of seats in the first 16 rows of a theater make an arithmetic sequence, meaning you're adding the same number to the previous row to get the next row. If there are 20 seats in row 1 and 23 seats in row 2, how many seats are in row 16? So the way I did this is I just set up, okay, R sub 1 is 20, row sub 2 is 23. If you keep going, you could figure it out. It would just take a while, right? We're trying to find row 16, so we'll call that row 16. So if you kept going, right, I guess you could do it. You can go 26, and then 4 would be 29, and then 32, right? It would just take a while. So the way I would do it is I would try to write the explicit formula for this. So I would say a sub n equals the first term, which we know is 20, plus the rest of the terms. So the common difference here is going to be 3, because we're going up by 3. So every row has 3 more seats than the row before it. So it's going to be 3, and then we just do times n minus 1. Okay, so that's the explicit formula. And now what we can do is we can apply that to the 16th row. So it would be, we want to find the 16th row, a sub 16 equals 20 plus 3. So think about it, we want 16 rows. Here's the first row. How many more rows besides the first row do we have? Well, we have 15 more rows left. So a sub 16, I called it R sub 16 for row, but I guess you can call it a sub 16 too. So that's going to be 20 plus 45, so that's going to be 65 seats. Bingo. Okay, cool. Next one, a sub 1 is 3. The common difference is 4. Which term? So this is a little different, right? Normally we plug things into here. Now what we're going to do is we're going to be plugging things into here. So what term is the 147th, or what term is 147? So the way I would do this is I would write the explicit formula. So we got a sub n equals the first term plus the rest of the terms. And then I say, well, they gave me 147, so that'll actually go right here. So I got 147 equals 3 plus 4 times n minus 1. And then you just use your algebra to solve that. So I'll subtract 3 from both sides. I got 144 equals, I'll distribute while I'm at it, 4n minus 4. Add 4 to both sides, I got 148 equals 4n, which means n is going to be equal to 37. So I just found that that's going to be the 37th term. And again, if you wanted to, you could just keep going until you got 147. It would just take a little while. 2 is exactly the same. So if you want to pause the video and try it for yourself to make sure you get it, you can. Or you can just keep watching, hang out. So again, I'm going to write the explicit formula here. So a sub n equals the first term plus the rest of the terms. Here the common difference is negative, so it's minus the rest of the terms, minus 5.5 times n minus 1. Negative 76.5. 76.5, not that, equals 6 minus 5.5 times n minus 1. And then you just go ahead and solve that algebraically. So distribute, go ahead and subtract 6. You should get the 16th term after you're done solving this algebraically. So n equals 16. Cool. All right. This next one's a little tricky. So the way I would do this is I would say, we know the third term is 32. We know the 7th term is negative 8. We want to find the first term and the common difference. So we just call that D. So when I look at this, I'm like, okay, well, it's going down, so I know the common difference has to be negative. And then I would just say, okay, how many spots? So I'm going between 32 and negative 8. So a sub 3 is 32. And I don't know a sub 4, and I don't know a sub 5, and I don't know a sub 6, but I do know a sub 7 is negative 8, right? So this distance that I cover from 32 to negative 8 is going to be negative 40. That distance is going to be negative 40. And then what you need to do is you need to take that and you need to chop it up into, well, just 7 minus 3 is 4. So chop it up into 4 equal parts. So if I take negative 40 and I chop it up into 4 equal parts, I get the common difference here to be negative 10. And you just kind of work your way around. So this distance right here was 4. This distance right here was negative 40. So if I take that and I chop it up into 4 equal parts, I get that common difference to be negative 10. Now what we have to do is find the first term. So I always go back to the explicit formula. A sub n equals the first term, which I'll just call a sub 1. I know that the common difference is negative 10, right? And then times n minus 1. And so now what I do is I just pick, do you want to pick the third term or do you want to pick the 7th term? It doesn't really matter. I'll pick the third term. So I know the third term is 32. So I can go 32 equals a sub 1 minus 10. And think about it. If this is the third term, this is the first term. How many more terms do I have besides the first term? Well, I think I have 2 other ones. So if I go negative 10 times 2, that will give me my explicit formula. So I go 32 equals a sub 1. Negative 10 times 2 is minus 20. Add 20 to both sides, I get a sub 1 to be 52. So on your Google Sheet today or Google Form, you're going to write the first term, 52, comma, the common difference, negative 40. Perfect. Okay, again, pause the video. You can try this one. So a sub 4 is going to be negative 32, negative 34.5, excuse me, and a sub 5 is going to be negative 12.5. So this one's a little easier because you can find the common difference right away, right? This is just going to go from here to here. It's going to be 22, right? Because the difference between 34.5, negative 34.5, and negative 12.5. I have to go up 22, right? And then this is an easy distance, right? How many am I breaking 22 up into? So this one I'm just breaking up into 1. So I know that the common difference is going to be 22. And then I could use my explicit formula again. This is kind of what it all comes back to. So a sub n equals a sub 1, which I'm looking for, plus 22 times n minus 1. So now you got to pick one. You want to pick this one or that one? I'll pick the fourth term. So the fourth term is going to be negative 34.5 equals a sub 1 plus 22. So it's the fourth term. This is the first term. I need 3 more terms to get the fourth term. So go ahead and multiply that out. I should get a sub 1 equaling negative 100.5. So when you write your answer out, it's going to be negative 100.5, comma 22. All right, there you go. Great lesson. Peace.